Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing Poetry Slam by Mayday Games. Poetry Slam is a game for 3 to 10 players that plays in 25 to 45 minutes. And this is the Kickstarter edition. So first we have our rulebook. Poetry Slam is a party game. It's essentially a word game where you will be drawing cards. The cards will have a letter on them, and then they'll have some sort of prompt that has to interact with that letter. So for instance, this example here says that the second letter is a T, and then each player is going to create a word based on that prompt. So a word where the second letter is T. They can make it as long as they want, as long as it's at least 3 letters and conforms to some other rules like no proper names and things of that nature. Once they've created a word, they're then going to take one of these tiles, which have numbers on them, and between the length of their word and that tile, they're going to score a certain amount of points for that round. But of course, the first thing they have to do is come up with a poem. And the poem is a way to reference the word that they've written down, to basically give a clue to other players to guess the word. If another player is able to guess the word, they get a point, whereas the player who created the poem will get either 2 or 3 points, depending on how quickly somebody guessed that word. Then in between rounds, you're going to have to remove letters essentially from your alphabet that you can no longer use for the rest of the game. And that's where these little tiles come in. Each number gives you a certain number of points. So you may want the higher value ones, but the higher value ones have words on them that are more difficult to lose in your vocabulary. And you're going to play through a certain number of rounds and then eventually total all your points to see who wins. So first thing we have are some player screens. Each player is going to have one of these screens in front of them, and it's just basically going to be a reminder about round structure, how points work, and so on, and also to keep their words hidden. We have some tokens here. So during the course of the game, if you ever break a rule of the game, maybe you use one of those proper nouns that you weren't supposed to, or you lost the letter L but then used it in your word, you'll gain one of these tokens, which are essentially negative points. We have some pencils here. We have our letter boards. So again, as you play and you gain these tokens, they will tell you what letters you have to remove from your alphabet, and you'll put one of these tokens on those letters so that you remember not to use them anymore. We've got some scorecards. Each player will get one of these, and again, you're going to create a word and then create a poem to give a clue to that word, and you're going to get points for the length of the word, depending on if somebody guessed it and how quickly they guessed it, and then also the token that you take from the center of the table. So here are the tokens themselves, and there'll be a number of these out each round depending on the player count. So if there's 5 players, there'll be enough tokens for everybody to get one, and they will be on their numbered side. And again, these are extra points, so you may be tempted to go for the 5, but of course the 5 requires you to get rid of a tier 1 letter between rounds, which are going to be difficult to create words if you can't use an A or an E. We've got our letter cards here, so you'll just shuffle these up, and each round you'll draw one randomly to determine what letter you are using that round, and then you will draw a word prompt, and that word prompt will tell you how to use that letter. So the first letter in the word you're creating has to be an O for this round. We got some extra tokens here. Again, these are the negative point tokens. I was mistaken. These are actually what you use to mark off your letter board, whereas these slam tokens are what you get when you make an error, essentially. We've got some extra cardboard in here, but it looks like that's just for organizing. So that's everything you get in a copy of Poetry Slam from Mayday Games.